Hello.
Hello, all. Good evening.
Hey everyone, we're giving just a couple more minutes for folks to uh, trickle in. While we're waiting, I'm gonna uh, share my screen. Well, while we're having folks trickle in, I'll ask folks to start introducing themselves in the chat. Let us know where in Ohio or outside of Ohio you are, your name and anything in particular you're interested in learning in this presentation tonight. I'll give a couple more minutes as for folks to introduce themselves in the chat and others to come in.
Well, I'm on the far left. Maybe I should start. Richard Henry. We're from Millville, Pennsylvania. We call it Northeast Central Pennsylvania. We're north of Bloomsburg, where the state fair is, and we're southwest of Scranton, Wilkes-Barre. And we live in a 201-year-old farmhouse built by the settlers of Millville. They built a grist mill, and we're going to build 9 megawatts of solar panels. So we started with our 90 REC panels on our barn and hayloft, and we've got almost 2 years runtime on that. And I got a lot of good news about that if you want to get your own personal solar system. And I'd be glad to share things we learned. My interest tonight is seeing what you guys in Ohio know about community solar and what kind of objections you're getting from the natives, from our neighbors, the public. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
great.
have two questions. I live in Cleveland and I've had panels for 9 years. When I installed them, there was a restriction on the capacity that you could build to 90% of your historic electricity use. This was I guess, a FirstEnergy thing. I don't know if that's still the case since FirstEnergy's out of the generation business. And the other is next door to my property, they're going to build an 800 unit um, condominium apartment complex. And I just wondered what the mechanics of that would be if they were to use a community approach to putting solar panels on their flat roof. Um, how does that work for the individual owners of each unit? Do they, in Ohio, is it, in condominium units, the utilities are individually paid for, and like the heating and air conditioning mechanical systems are uh, established for each unit. And so I wonder in a community arrangement whether that would still be the case, like would each unit have its own set of solar panels? Would there be any kind of common usage for those panels? And I'm asking that as a um, as an orientation to presenting the possibility of putting panels on that development.
Can I just ask one clarification? Does state of Ohio allow community solar? Pennsylvania doesn't yet. We're still trying to get it, but we don't have it. What about Ohio?
For individual homes or what
No,
would you?
we're a company would put up a solar. That's what we're trying to do. We're going to put up 60 acres of solar panels and offer it to the community so that they could have community solar. We're working with Pivot Energy out of Colorado, and they pretty much started community solar and agrovoltaics. And that's the approach we're taking. But right now, community solar is not allowed in Pennsylvania. But in general, to answer your question about the condominium and residents, the concept is that a community solar takes advantage of somebody who has 60 acres of farmland that they're willing to put panels on, and then allows people to buy into the community. It doesn't cost anything. You just have to support it, and you can get anywhere from 10 to 20% off your electric rates for life. It answers the big question that I always get when we go to the community meetings in the township. What's in it for me? Well, that's the answer. Community solar, people get 10 to 20% off their electric bills.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And
That's,
Frederick, I think Mariah put something in the chat for you too to answer some of your questions. Go ahead, Karen.
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Mariah. And I think these are some of the topics we are going to get into
good.
here this evening. So thanks for teeing us up, Frederick and Richard. And there we go. So just some quick housekeeping. We do like to see you if we can. So if you can't turn on your camera, go ahead and do that. Please feel free to make use of the chat bot, or not chat bot. We don't have a chat bot here tonight. But please feel free to make use of the chat box to interact with each other and put in questions. We do want to make sure this is a respectful space. So while we've never had to do it before, we will mute folks if they're being, particularly disruptive or disrespectful. Feel free to connect with others in the chat through social media links such as LinkedIn. And with that, I am going to turn it over to our hosts or presenters for tonight, Jesse Velasquez, Emily Little, and Chimmy. And so I'm going to switch our slide presentation. And while I'm doing that, do you three want to jump in and introduce yourselves?
Yeah, thank you so much, Karen. My name is Emily Little. I am a Senior Solar Access and Affordability Regional Associate at Solar United Neighbors. And I'll pass it to Jesse.
Yeah, thank you again so much everyone for joining us tonight. I'm Jesse Velasquez, and I am the Climate Justice Manager with the Ohio Environmental Council. And I'll pass it to Chimmy.
Hi everyone, this is Chimmy. I'm based in Massachusetts and I'm one of the fellow at Sun. And I'll pass it back to the host.
All right. So I'll go ahead and get us started. So today is our final session on the first series of our Energy Champions program. We started way back in August, and now we are wrapping up this series. So super excited. We are going to discuss how to build power in your neighborhood and how coming together can lead to progress and changes in our energy system. So some topics that might come up in your community when talking to neighbors include increasing rates of energy. Rate hikes are an issue that affect everyone. If you're paying more on an energy bill, that's less money you have to pay for other expenses that month. Another issue that affects our state is the building of data centers. You may have heard of these. A data center is a facility that houses a large network of computer servers, storage, and processing systems. In order for these facilities to run, they require a lot of energy and a lot of water to cool them off, which increases electricity and water bills for Ohioans. Another topic might be the frequency of power outages in Ohio. And I found a really cool study done by the Citizens Utility Board in 2021, and it ranked Ohio 40th out of all states from best to worst. So they're in the bottom 10 in reliability of utilities. And Brian is going to drop a link in the chat to that study. And so cost and just before we go to the next slide, so cost and reliability are serious issues that affect all of us in our everyday lives. So I want to ask the audience to maybe share some of the topics that you have discussed with your neighbors on energy in the chat. And we'll do that in the chat because we're running a little bit behind. Okay, next slide. All right, let's talk about some communication basics to be aware of when you are talking to your neighbors. So number one, be sure to express hope along with urgency. These energy issues are urgent, but we don't want to make our neighbors feel like everything is moving too fast and there's nothing we can do. So make sure you always convey hope when you're talking to your neighbors. Number two, be a good listener. You should try to listen 80% of the conversation and only talk 20%. That way you can learn about your neighbor's concerns. And remember, people love to talk about their own issues. So that'll go well. And number three, have a call to action ready. So before the conversation, make sure you know what you want to call on your neighbor to do to advocate for their issue. So this may be writing a letter to the editor. It may be asking them to speak to another one of your neighbors about their issue, or talking at a PUC hearing. Number four, we want to make sure that the neighbor leaves the conversation feeling a sense of empowerment to advocate for themselves. And number five, if you don't know something, that's okay. Don't worry. Make sure you tell your neighbor you don't know and you'll find an answer. This opens the door for trust building and a second conversation, which is always good. Next slide. All right, so here are some ways that you can engage and advocate in your community. Jesse will talk about first how to lobby a state representative. Chimmy will then discuss how to speak at a PUCO hearing. And then I'll explain more on our upcoming Series 2 of the Energy Champions program that's going to focus on energy democracy. I'll now pass it to Jesse.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see. Okay, and perfect. And I'm going to really kind of approach this from a high level, but really want to start by saying that energy policy is very and can seem very complicated and technical, and honestly that's part of why it's often dominated by industry voices, utilities, trade associations, the big energy users that Emily mentioned, that they have the lobbyists, lawyers, resources dedicated to shaping these decisions, often behind the scenes. But the main thing is that we have to remember every major policy decision, whether it's setting our electricity rates, approving a new power plant, or deciding where we spend our public funds, these all have a process for public input. And those are in forms of hearings, comment periods, public meetings, and the opportunities for us to submit testimony or letters. And those moments are built into the process for us. They're designed to make sure that the people who are directly affected, residents, families, local businesses, and communities get to be heard. So when communities take advantage of those openings, it does make a difference. I've been to utility scale solar meetings that have had to add additional days to make sure that they could hear all the public comments. Packed committee hearings of residents wearing all the yellow Solar United Neighbors shirts to make sure the legislators know what they're supporting, and heard heartfelt testimony shift the tone of energy policy discussions. So decision makers do notice when we show up, because it shows that the energy issues aren't just about the economics, the technology that's changing. They're about our lives. You know, the bills we pay, our health, and the future of our communities. And so we see the balance start to shift when more of us get involved, and the more our voices show up in these spaces, the more accountable our leaders become, and the more our policies start to reflect those community priorities, whether it be cleaner air, affordable energy, or just a more equitable and fairer energy system. So even though the system can feel and seem complex, it's important to remember that the process is designed to include us, and that our voice has power, and when we use it together, it can truly change the outcome. Let's see, can we go to the next slide? Oh, that was my voice has power slide. So we can go to the next one. Thank you. Perfect. And so basically, once we understand that our voice has power, that matters, the next questions come off. What can we actually do? How do we make that influence real? And so I'm just going to go again at a high level some of the actions we can take, and many are fairly simple, or more simple than we think. First being that we can contact our officials, and out of the bat that can sound intimidating, but it's really just about starting a conversation. We have to remember that our representatives, whether it's our state representatives, local representatives, senators, county commissioners, what have you, they're in these positions to work for us, and they rely on hearing from their constituents to know what matters most. So you can call, send an email, even schedule a short meeting. It doesn't have to be fancy. In fact, just sharing your personal story is the most impactful. To tell why does clean energy matter to you, to your family, to your faith community, to your business, or a local economy. And you'll see sometimes many organizations, ours included, we might send a sign-on template that has kind of the boilerplate talking points that you can use. But sometimes once a legislator has seen one of them, they've really seen all of them. So a lot of times a single heartfelt message from a local resident can carry much more weight than a compiled industry talking points. And the personal stories really stick with our legislators. I've seen that multiple times firsthand. But it's important to remember that you're not in this. You don't have to do the work alone. So those organizations can be very powerful and impactful. Organizations like Solar United Neighbors, the Ohio Environmental Council, just to name us here, but there's many local sustainability and energy alliances already organizing around clean energy, fair utility rates, and just healthier communities. So following, getting involved in one that speaks to you or that's in your community, to plug in, sign petitions, attend events, and helping to spread the word online. A lot of that ability to connect is already there when you can be involved in some of those organizations. And the reality is, if you don't see something happening locally, there's the opportunity to start something, whether it's hosting a community information night, requesting Zoom presentations. We've done a lot with to share with neighbors, a letter writing session after church. Every campaign starts with just a few people deciding to care loudly together. And then third, I'll say is use your voice. We talked about the power of your voice. Use your voice publicly. So this can be writing a short letter to the editor in your local paper, an op-ed, or even posting on a community Facebook page. It can also mean testifying at public hearings or sharing your experience in a local news story. And we've provided some resources to help when individuals want to do that. But public comments shape public perception. And when people in your community start hearing familiar voices calling for clean, fair, forward-looking energy, it helps build that momentum. So really the bottom line is it does not take being an expert to get action started. It just requires showing up and speaking from the heart. Every message, post, every conversation adds to that growing chorus that reminds decision makers, energy isn't just about our kilowatts or our markets. It's about people and the kind of a future that we want to build together. We can go to the next slide, please. Perfect. And so really that's maybe the most important thing that I want to leave you with, is that the real change does not happen overnight. It happens when you sustain momentum and build power together as a community. So as I mentioned, I think that a big opportunity is staying connected, as I encourage you all to do. If you're looking for places to plug in, then maybe we can put some of these links in the chat. I don't know if the link from my slide there, but Solar United Neighbors, which has branches across the country, but there's the Solar United Neighbors of Ohio and the Ohio Environmental Council are great starting points, which you can follow both online, sign up for newsletters, stay up to date with updates and opportunities to take action. And I'll also give a plug for Ohio Environmental Council. OEC will be launching a new utility scale solar landing page where we'll be tracking major solar projects across Ohio, showing what's moving forward, what's been delayed, which projects can benefit local communities if done equitably, sharing the member updates, ways that they can comment, attend hearings, and see that progress or lack thereof statewide. I think it was David, I believe in the chat, mentioned the bans, the Senate Bill 52 bans, and that's a big topic of discussion that we'll be sharing updates and even opportunities to be involved on that template. So keep an eye out for that with OEC. But second is tracking legislation, and this wasn't something that I had done too well of before joining Ohio Environmental Council. It's like watching C-SPAN was hard for me to understand and follow, but there is so much information. I think so much happening too in energy this year, and especially right now in our General Assembly. But I'll talk just briefly high level about a couple. One is House Bill 303, and that's I think Richard had already asked a little bit. We can get into it more, but the Community Energy Bill, usually called Community Solar. We're referring to as community energy, but it would create a pilot program allowing communities to share locally generated renewable energy and at lower cost for residents. And people across the state have been submitting testimony in support of it. So I know Richard, you brought it up at the beginning. So hopefully at the end of the presentation, we can provide a little bit more details on your question, which, what are the challenges Ohio's facing with that legislation in our Q&A session. And just to give just a couple more, there's many right now moving in our legislative assembly, but another House Bill 427, which refers to demand response, and this is about giving people more flexibility to save money by shifting energy use off of peak times, which is a key part of our grid modernization and reliability conversations. And then one in the Senate, Senate Bill 294, which is started a big debate about how we define clean, reliable, and affordable energy in Ohio, and that legislation was just introduced, so that conversation is evolving where public input can really make a difference there in what our legislators hear. So it's not just hearing from those vested interests and industry that we mentioned at the beginning. But one thing I'll say, all these are streamed on the Ohio channel, so you can follow the process from home. I live in Cincinnati, but I can follow those streams of what's happening in Columbus virtually. But don't overlook the power of our local meetings too. That's where much of the groundwork happens. So again, I'll just use Cincinnati for example. Here, as a result of our Green Cincinnati plan, our city's Climate Infrastructure Committee and our Environmental Advisory Board, they all hold meetings that are open to the public. So I can, and a lot of those are even virtual too. But so being able to attend and participate in those conversations can be very powerful. And then even just recently, I've gotten involved in my township, Springfield Township Action Committee. So I've been able to have a part of those local conversations at the most local level for me here. So just keep your eye out for those, and don't underestimate the value and power of where community can go there. And then last on my list is to educate others. Sometimes the most powerful advocacy starts with those simple conversations. And you don't have to launch into policy details. Just sharing what you've learned and why it matters. Hosting small discussions like a book or film club. Even saying, have you seen the new HBO documentary about the Ohio's House Bill 6 energy scandal? These can be powerful reminders of why transparency and public accountability matter. And even casual conversations can open doors. I've had so many conversations. We just got a puppy at my household, so I'm out there walking all the time. But I can have my neighbors, when I see their solar panels on the roof. And I'm sure I'd walk by and see the solar array. Richard decided, we had some great conversations there, or just people using their EV chargers. You'd be amazed how many people are quietly passionate about clean energy. And once the topic opens up, the conversations you can have. So the point is sustaining momentum is not just about policy. It's about people. And every time, we show up, we stay informed, we talk to others, we are building that community power. And that's how we move from just awareness to real lasting change. And so to sum it up, most powerful thing is that we stay connected, engaged, and we can build the power not just in Columbus, but where we live. And one of the most direct ways to make your voice is by participating in public hearings, especially at the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio, or PUCO. So I want to pass it on to Chimmy on the next slide to really talk about what that looks like in practice.
Thanks, Jesse. So in this slide, I will be talking about how we as consumers can get involved in the hearing. PUCO holds public hearings to give consumers an opportunity to put forward our experience and also feedback, comments on the hearings. So the main mission of the hearing is to provide all the consumers safe space to speak up. And this matters for several reasons. First of all, the comments hugely influence decision on utility rates. And secondly, it promotes accountability. Sorry, I saw Frederick, your hand is off.
Yes, just let's rewind back to some basic things. When you talk about community power, what is that? Does that exclude individual homeowners with solar panels? Does that include them? Does that include cities that want to use solar energy for their electricity needs, like for fire departments, city halls, community centers? Does that include those kinds of efforts, schools? Or is it just building a power supply for a group of individual homes? Does it also, as I mentioned, condominium building, providing solar power to those kinds of construction?
Thank you for that question, Frederick. I think if you don't mind, what we'll do is I'll put that as our first question in the Q&A, because I wanted to get to Richard's question about community energy policy, the legislation. So we can answer both of those. What do we mean when we talk about community energy, and then what does the legislation look like in Ohio, where we're at with it? So we can definitely address that when we get to the Q&A section.
Yeah, so what is community power? What kind of physical arrangements are we talking about in terms of providing solar energy to people's habitation needs, or beyond that, community service needs like cities and hospitals and so forth?
Yeah, and again, if it's okay, Frederick, I think we can we'll answer that question just after we finish the presentation here. So I like that question a lot, and I think we can talk a little bit more where we can get into a deeper conversation about that. But yeah, let's I'll let Chimmy finish the slides, then we can get to the Q&A after that.
Thanks.
So I don't understand I don't understand your answer, Jesse. Are you going to tell us what community power means before we talk about legislation?
Yes.
I'm a complete novice.
Oh, fair enough,
Can you
Frederick.
tell us what is community power in maybe a paragraph?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me see if I actually can link it here. But basically, yeah, exactly that a power generated source that doesn't have to be on your rooftop, but you can access that power. That energy can still be accessed by your house or your business So the community has access to that power, but it's not necessarily on their roof. So that's where a power source that's available to that community, and just again, most basic terms, is what kind we mean by that. So it's not specifically limited to your rooftop as a resident where you'd want community rooftop solar. This can be a power generation, and we'll get into some more caveats to that because it can be community energy. So it doesn't have to be solar, and it doesn't have to be. There's different ways that can express itself, but it's power that you can have access to that you don't have to be the generator of, if that makes sense.
So it not only applies to homeowners' needs, but it could also be community facility needs as well.
Absolutely. There's a lot of great examples of that yeah, we can definitely get into a little bit more about those questions. So yeah, I appreciate that question. It would apply to all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Okay. Yes. So I was saying about how, like, speaking up matters for several reasons. First of all, the comments like directly influence the decision that the commission makes on utility rates. And secondly, it promotes accountability, which is super important. And speaking up helps and encourages regulators and utilities to take these comments into consideration when they are making decisions. So we are like practicing fair decisions on utility rates. And thirdly, this all results to less economic burden on families and communities, which is one of the major goal of our advocacy work. And if any one of you have attended any hearing and submitted any comments, please, like, if you could raise your hand, or like, if not, like, just react on it. There's a reaction button. We would love to hear your experience, good or bad, or anything. And also feel free to like put in the chat if you'd like to like not not speak, but just a chat in the chat box. And next slide. So I will be giving a step-by-step process of how how we can get involved in the hearing. Typically, there are two ways that we can participate. The first one is in person, testifying at a local public hearing, where you will have to, like, first, when you go there in the hearing, you will have to register yourself, and then there you can, like, face-to-face provide the comments to the commissioners. Typically 4 or 5 commissioners are there. So that is one of the options. And the second one, if you're like out of state or not able to attend in person, there's also a virtual option. And that you can do by going to the website of the PUCO webpage. And there is a section called Docketing Information System, and something called like File a Public Comment. You can click on it and again register your name and your email. And you can also, another thing is you can also stay anonymous, which I think is pretty cool, because some of us would not like to like share our all the information with the commission. And there is a screenshot here of a comment that was filed online. So like you can see the name, all the information of the person who has filed the comment. And also in the comment description, there is a whole reason and experience by that commenter, like why the utility rates the price should not increase. So like you can express freely about what you think and why the utility rate increase is, like, how is it affecting you or your families. And these comments are taken into consideration, and it is used as evidence by the commission when they are making decisions. And talking about some of the tips for preparation, it is highly recommended to like prepare earlier because every hearing is about different topic and different subject. So briefly reviewing about like what the upcoming hearing is about and how is it affecting in any way. So like writing out a statements or note beforehand is super beneficial and helpful. And also keeping it short and focused, especially in person. That is also highly recommended. And lastly, like we would like to share in this slide, lastly, there is a resource by PUCO, the workshops that they held every now and then. So it's about utility policies and like how to like a lot about grid resilience and so many topics that you can learn about, and it is free to attend. And that also like you can get the information from the web page, the PUCO web page. And it's about capacity building of consumers, and we as consumers, we have like we can get like more knowledge about how the utility policies work and how it is affecting us. So kind of like self education and also capacity building. And I'll pass it back to Emily now.
All right. Thank you so much, Jimmy. So our next series will be in the new year with times to be announced soon. It will contain 4 sessions, just like this series. The first one, though, will be on energy justice as a movement and its historical context. The second will be on the just transition and how our transfer from a fossil fuel extractive energy system to a green community-centric energy system can take place while not harming the most valuable community, or sorry, the most vulnerable communities. The third session will be on what energy democracy looks like in Ohio. So we will be talking about community energy bill. We'll be talking about community choice aggregation. Some of you might be in one of those already. And the final class is how to be an energy champion, which focuses further into what we learned today and how to be an advocate for energy justice in your community. And next slide. And we're going to play a video for you to talk more about the concept of energy democracy.
Okay, come on. Come on, I'll let you out. Yeah, come on. Yeah.
Oh, Karen, we can't hear it.
I'll let you out. Just hang on there.
You might have to turn on your volume. Yeah. Yeah, we still can't hear it. I can share my screen and try to play it from my webpage. So this is a video that's actually on Solar United Neighbors website. So let me find 1 second. All right, here we go. Can everybody see my screen? All right, we're gonna try to play it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully it works.
Energy for, by, and with the people. You know, it's people in communities, especially organized communities and the public sector, providing that essential human service, making it available, accessible, and cutting out the for-profit part of energy generation.
Energy democracy is about understanding the energy system and weighing in to make it into the system we need to serve our communities.
No more corporate, thumb on our world. We're trying to do the exact opposite, right? Creating people power, people generating power.
Energy democracy to me means building sustainable communities for constituents to have renewable energy and renewable resources.
And I'm just going to plug Solar United Neighbors has a solar access and affordability webpage that has been revamped recently. So go check it out. I'll drop it in the chat and I'll pass it back to Karen. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Emily. So now we're to the questions portion. And so Jesse, if you want to dive in further, you talked about what community energy is. And I don't know if you also want to clarify what like solar co-ops are as well. For what and then get into the legislation itself. And then I think we have other questions in the chat, maybe, and I will, Emily, I don't know if you can moderate the questions in the chat.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe I guess to make sure, we can kind of define what community energy is. And Frederick too, and just for everybody, I did put a link to a blog that we had done when this bill was first introduced, House Bill 303, that has some of the overview about this particular legislation. And again, we call it community energy. In previous General Assemblies, it was called just community solar. So really focusing on these solar projects, and maybe it helps even understand it in the context of what's different between rooftop solar, community solar, community energy, and then utility scale solar. So we can see it kind of in that difference. But basically, if you're the rooftop solar, you are the owner of those solar panels. You're the one whose bill is off, that energy is offsetting. And so it's that individual saving individual impact with your energy system. And so that's where community energy would often be, it's shared among many subscribers. So like you had mentioned, Frederick, it doesn't have to just be residentials. It can be businesses that they all share, if they all subscribe to that same plan of that, that particular, the megawatts of that project. So if you had a 10 megawatt project, maybe it has a certain number of business subscribers, or a certain number of households that can subscribe to that megawatt generation site. And that was one key thing with this bill, is that it opened up to many different types of projects of that size, not just solar, because that was one of to Richard's question about one of the holdups that Ohio has been facing, trying to get this across the finish line, was changing the language from community solar to community energy, that would open up to other forms, even natural gas, which in Ohio we've passed legislation that natural gas is green, that can be a source of generation in some capacity. And then on the other end of that spectrum, you have utility scale solar, which is owned or built anyway, and by these large developers, and that's of 50 megawatts or more, that goes directly into our grid, that just is a much larger generation source. So kind of understanding that it's difference in respect to what a community solar is to just a single rooftop solar, and utility solar, I think is maybe helpful. But I don't know, did that definition help Frederick with just understanding kind of what we mean when we say community energy?
Yes, a little bit, and maybe it'd be useful if we could talk some case studies, either situations where developers are currently trying to pursue something under the community energy solar concept and the obstacles they face. For me, Senate Bill 123, whatever, I can't relate to that.
Sure. No,
Okay, what I
great
understand is, as I said, in my situation, when I built my own rooftop solar, there were regulations specific to my supplier, which was First Energy, which constrained me. And I know there has been some community effort by the city of Cleveland and by Cuyahoga County to sort of provide a utility scale capacity, and they've run into state constraints and due to legislation or other things. So I think it'd be more useful if we could understand specific situations. And if there is legislation being discussed, then how would that apply to these case studies? I know you're not prepared this evening to come up with some case studies, but in terms of discussing this, I think we're very abstract, and I don't think many people can really follow this. Certainly I can't follow this conversation in terms of how I can participate. I know I can go down to Columbus and go into a committee hearing, but for what? As I say, I have something planned to be built right next to my property. I and other people have said, well, why not put solar on that construction? What do we do? So that's sort of my position. A little
Greg, maybe I
more
can tell you a little
specific
bit about
discussion.
Pennsylvania, and we can spur some more conversation from that. There are questions about what are the levels. When we first put our solar system in on the barn, we were limited to 110% of whatever our electric bill was. We're fortunate to have a net metering state. Pennsylvania's net metering, so is Ohio, right? Okay.
Yes.
We
Ohio's
have
net
virtual aggregate net metering. So I've got 3 properties, 2 of which are connected electrically one way around, and our house is a separate line. But we can generate the power down here and use it up at the other facilities. However, PP&L can't figure out how to add and subtract. That's another long story. But so they're limited to 110%. The solar farms that we're going to be putting in, the hopefully community solar farms in Pennsylvania, they are basically limited to 3 megawatts. And there's always a good question, which megawatts? You're talking DC, AC? And I like to use AC. So nameplate rating AC is 3 megawatts. That makes it a small facility. 3 megawatt facility takes up less than 20 acres. And commercial solar is like what our utility, Pennsylvania Power and Light, is installing over at their coal plant, the Montour plant. They're putting in 100 megawatt solar plant. They basically bought up the land around the coal plant, whatever they didn't own already, and they are going to put solar panels on it and just attach it to the transmission lines there at the coal plant. So there's a lot of pushback in Pennsylvania from the utility. They realize that Rich Henry is no longer going to be a lifetime contributor to their income. He's going to make his own electricity from here on out. And they're doing things that I would too if I were them. Now, I worked for this company for 34 years. I was a nuclear startup engineer up at the Susquehanna nuclear plant. And I like PP&L a lot. PP&L was sold to Talon Energy, who owns the Montour plant now too. And we're getting into a great debate here locally with data centers. I've been struggling trying to explain to my neighbors why solar panels don't generate noise, they don't generate dangerous radiation. When the panels are done, that doesn't contaminate the earth for 300 years. That's a comment that we got at one of the Greenwood Township supervisors meetings, where the first person planning the plant was asking for a conditional use permit. And that comment came from one of the supervisors. That's what I'm up against, trying to convince just not just my neighbors, but the people that make the decisions don't understand the technology and they're not willing to ask. They just know, they know that they don't want it, period. And they're doing everything they can to prevent it. And we've got an active solicitor who found another solar ordinance down near Lancaster that says, okay, you can't put solar panels on agricultural land, period. You have to cut down your forest land and put them in the woods, but you can't put them on your fields. That's about as anti-solar an ordinance as I could find. But that's what I'm up against. And I agree with communicating, but I just need, well, I'll have a lot more experience over the next year. In the next year, we're going to
Is this an Ohio constraint
this is
about
Pennsylvania.
not using agricultural land?
Not, I hope not. Right
Oh.
now, that's just us in Greenwood Township, Columbia County, Pennsylvania. They're so anti-solar that they wrote an ordinance that says you can't put it on farmland. But now I have to go in. Well, that's another long story. There was they appealed the decision to the appeals court. I'm assuming Pennsylvania and Ohio are similar, but when the township came out with that ordinance, our lawyer said, who's my neighbor, by the way, says that's wholly unconstitutional. I mean, it was none other than Benjamin Franklin in Pennsylvania who wrote in our original Constitution that when you own the land, you can do what you want to with it, long as you don't harm your neighbors. Well, that's what zoning ordinances do. We're not going to harm the neighbors. I'm not going to. It's not a pig farm. It's not going to stink. I'm not going to run race cars around the track at night. But we're struggling to meet this. And the new one is now data centers. Everybody says you just want to build solar panels so you can provide power to the data centers. You're in cahoots with all the big power companies. No, it's the exact opposite. I'm not in cahoots with my former employer. I am trying to compete with them. And putting in my 9 megawatt hour Pivot and Henry solar panel farms is going to provide more electricity. We will generate enough electricity for our entire community. It's only 1,000 people, and there's 500 in the township, so we'll be generating all of our power. We won't need the nuclear plant 25 miles to the east and the coal plant 10 miles to the west. But people don't see it that way. They just see it and they don't like it. And what I'm looking forward to community solar, if it ever passes, is it answers that question. What's in it for me? $800 a year less that you have to write checks to Pennsylvania Power and Light for doing nothing. It's just part of it. It's all part of trying to get people to accept change. It's not solar, it's just change. People don't like anything that change, particularly if they can't control it. And I don't blame them. That's why we bought the land 40 years ago. So we get to decide what gets put on it. But now when we're ready to put something on it, we're getting all kinds of, it's going to work out. We're in good hands with Pivot. They're a good organization and they know how to do community solar. One of their approaches is agrivoltaics. We're not going to, in fact, our land hasn't been farmed in 4 years. The person who farmed it was the son of the previous farmer, and we had a really good relationship with them. They're good friends of ours. but he passed away and the kids can't afford to run the farm. That's the story of corn and bean farmers in Pennsylvania and probably Ohio. So now it's shifted to larger solar farms, commercial solar farms, large megawatt farms. And there was just
And that's, Richard, that's really resonates with a lot that is happening here in Ohio, and conversations happening here in Ohio. I mean, you really hit on some common topics that are going on here as well. There is no ban on solar panels on farmland in Ohio. It's been discussed at the legislature at different times. Jesse brought up a law that passed a couple of years ago called SB 52 that allows county commissioners to ban solar completely, utility scale solar completely in certain areas of the county or in the whole county. So there's no bans for solar on farmland right now, but you can ban solar, utility scale solar, just outright in certain areas of Ohio. And Ohio also has many developers working on what Richard referred to as agrivoltaics. So these sort of larger scale solar facilities actually being side by side with agriculture, including crops between the rows, and then other livestock agriculture, such as sheep grazing, and then even to beekeeping. All of those different forms of agriculture, developers around Ohio are working on developing or are already cultivating. And so Richard already walked through it, but there are a number of questions that you can ask to start conversations. Jesse talked about just when you're out walking the dog, when you're at the playground with your kids or grandkids. There are ways to sort of bring up these issues, as far as, your latest utility bill, talking about, seeing the utility bill rise and why that's happening. Different things that you're doing to prepare as the winter comes. I've been meaning to talk to my husband about doing some extra caulking around the baseboards and windows as we're looking at colder weather. Just talking about again, how to read the utility bill, what are the different pieces that are on there. And we're not going to do the activity because we're low on time, and Richard already sort of gave us an example of some of the conversations that he's had. But these are on this slide here that I'm sharing. These are some more examples. And as Jimmy discussed, you can go to your Public Utilities Commission of Ohio and tell them that you don't want to see increased rates. Or that you want them to prioritize things like energy efficiency and getting the most out of their existing infrastructure before they start collecting money from ratepayers to build more infrastructure. And if you live in the AEP Ohio service territory, they are currently requesting a rate increase before the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio, and there are a number of opportunities to speak. If you're in the Central Ohio area, December 4th at 6 p.m., there will be an opportunity to speak to the commissioners and let them know what you think about AEP Ohio's request. That information just came out today, and we can include more detailed information about those opportunities because there are also opportunities in other parts of AEP Ohio's service territory up in Toledo and Southeast Ohio. And so we will include that information in the follow-up email. And so we just have one last minute to let you know that we do have that next series coming up that Emily talked about. So keep your eyes out for that. Keep your eye out for our follow-up email with this recording. And Emily, is there anything else you want to say before we sign off here?
I just think it's wonderful that we had this whole activity plan, but Richard and Frederick like portrayed the whole activity. So that was awesome. I love it. So that worked out really, really well. So it's just been great. This has been a great series, and I'm so excited for the next one. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.